hope you guys are warm. Kasi it's cold. Okay. So, pinaka-importanting question before starting is, kamusta kayo? Kamusta ang inyong utak after the test? Kamusta ang inyong kalagayan? Kamusta kayo? And kung matatanong nyo kung kamusta ako, I'm still in the hype. Kasi nga hype kami. Nasa hype pa kami nung PCNE namin from last week. So talagang sobrang na-enjoy namin yung 3 days na binigay sa amin ni Lord to be able to learn and ponder things about synodality. So, today we're going to talk about the gospel for tomorrow, which is, as Homer read nga, is from Mark 1 verse 21 to 28. And we all know the story na, diba? So, allow me to start with an example. Magkaiba yung magulang na kinatatakutan ng kanyang anak kaya patago na gumagawa ng mali. Kumpara sa magulang na nire-respeto ng anak kaya hindi gumagawa ng mali. And I realize that there are English spoken in here. We have spoken in dollars here. So I will translate na lang. So there's a difference between a parent that is feared by his or her children pero gumagawa ng mali. Help. Wala na kayo dyan. So, just translate it after the rewind, ha? Magkaiba rin naman yung teacher na sinusunod ng mga estudyante dahil takot silang ibagsak. Sa teacher na sinusunod dahil nai-inspire nila yung mga estudyante. And magkaiba rin yung employer o yung amo na sinusunod ng kanyang trabahador dahil may kakayahan tong magtanggal ng trabaho kumpara sa amo na minamahal ng kanyang mga trabahador kasi nakaka-inspire yung kabutihan nito. So there's a big difference. There's a big difference between fear and respect. There's a big difference between fear and respect. Though fear is one way to get respect. Diba? Fear is one way to get respect, but it's a fickle one. It gets you the respect to your face, but behind your back, people tend to undermine you whenever there is possibility, or whenever it is possible. And when a person is driven with fear, oftentimes he does things in order to avoid punishment or to avoid the consequences of his disobedience. While true respect, on the other hand, is a mutual thing, given and received between two people. And when a person is driven with respect, he does things simply because he loves the person who is telling him to do things. Simple lang, dahil ayaw niyang ma-offend yung kanyang minamahal. He does things because he doesn't want to offend his beloved. Naalala ko yung tanong ni Tony Stark dun sa Iron Man 1. Bago niya ipakita or isample yung Jericho missile na gagamitin nila sa war, sabi ni Tony Stark sa kanyang intro, "Is it better to be feared or respected? I say, is it too much to ask for both?" Is it too much to ask for both? To be feared and respected. But I think the answer really goes down to whether you know the person you are heeding to. Whether you know the person you are heeding to. And Jesus in today's gospel has shown a balance of fear and respect. And this balance is called authority. Authority is the moral or legal right or the ability to give orders, to make decisions, and enforce obedience. Authority is what someone has if you have respect towards him, yet still fear of what he can do. And this is something that we have witnessed in today's gospel, we can see that even the devil knows his theology. Alam ng demonyo even his theology. Bukod sa alam niya kung anong kayang gawin sa kanya ni Jesus, alam niya kung sino si Jesus. Diba sinabi nung inaalihanan ng masamang espiritu, naparito ka ba upang puksain kami? Kilala kita. Kilala kita. Ikaw ang banal na mula sa Diyos. The evil spirit followed Jesus because it knows Him. Alam niya kung sino at kung ano yung kayang gawin ni Jesus. And it brought me to a question, if the devil knows Jesus, how much do I know Jesus? Or how much do I know of Jesus? And knowing Jesus is different with knowing about Jesus. Kasi diba, knowing about someone usually is a fruit of hearsay. For example, may magsasabi sa akin, kilala ko si Maiko. Alam ko mabait siya. So it's a fruit of hearsay, yung knowing about. I do not have a personal encounter, whether kung talagang alam ko kung mabait si Maiko o hindi. So that's what knowing about means. While fully knowing someone is a fruit of a close and intimate encounter and the relationship with that person. So, gawin nating example yung Hacksaw Ridge na pinanood natin last Wednesday. Alam ng lahat ng sundalo na masama ang pumatay. Alam nilang lahat na masama ang pumatay. Pero lahat sila ay handa nilang talikuran yung katotohanan na iyon dahil yun yung kinakailangan sa gitna ng gera. Pero si Desmond lang yung may kakayahang manindigan sa kanyang paniniwala. Desmond Doss refuses to even touch a gun because he knows that God hates murder. He holds to his understanding of God's will, even to the point where he gets bullied, beat up, and even put into trial because of it. So, napanood naman natin yung Hacksaw Ridge, di ba? So let me ask you another question. Is this the kind of authority that Jesus holds in your life? Is this the kind of authority that Jesus holds in your life? And if not doon sa level ng pagsunod or obedience ni Desmond, if not in the level of obedience of that Desmond, then let me ask you, how much authority does Jesus have in your life? How much authority does Jesus have in your life? Is His authority enough to make you say the truth when you are tempted not to? Is His authority enough to make you change even your biggest dreams and life plans? Is this the kind of authority that Jesus holds in your life? And when the world is telling you to do this, do that, gawin mo ito, mas makakabuti sa iyo ito, gawin mo iyan, do we have the courage to say, I know God, and for sure He doesn't want me to do that. And Jesus is someone whom we should look up to in terms of becoming a good leader or disciple. Di ba kahapon, tinakil natin yung go and make disciples sa pamamagitan ni Kuya L2. And today, I can see doon sa gospel natin how much of a good disciple Jesus Himself is. Sabi doon sa gospel, namangha ang mga tao sapagkat nagturo siya sa kanila na parang isang may kapangyarihan at hindi tulad ng mga eskriba. And as young leaders, we are invited, no, to look at Jesus and to be attracted to His way of life and to His teachings. And to be honest, diba, there really is no guide on how to become a perfect follower of Christ. Wala naman maraming books, pero lahat naman, I would say, the way kung paano natin masusubukang ma-follow si Christ is really tailor-fitted to us kung paano tayo namumuhay, di ba? But a good leader, an authoritarian figure or leader, is someone who at the beginning of his work will go to Adoration Chapel and ask, Lord, paano to? Who at the beginning of his task of giving a talk or a guideline will ask, Lord, ano po yung gusto ninyong sabihin sa kanila? Who at the beginning of an activity or an event will sit silently in prayer and say, Lord, we dedicate this activity to you. Because that's what Jesus does. Yun yung ginagawa ni Jesus bago niya simulan lahat ng bagay. He always makes sure that he always have a time for prayer before doing things. Before he does his ministry, before he heals the sick, and I'm for sure, before he went to that synagogue to teach and to drive that evil spirit out, he made time for prayer. That's for sure. And I try to be in prayer then. I try to be in prayer whenever I start a particular task. Because prayer is what helped me get things done. In prayer, I do not become a changed person right away. But it helps me to set aside of my many tendencies in order to do my task faithfully. Like for example, hindi talaga ako morning person. And all throughout the 3 days ng PCNE where I have to wake up ng 4 a.m., wala talaga ako sa mood. So, imagine nyo na lang yung Kuya Gab na wala sa mood tapos hindi pa nagkakape. Kung yung nasa mood na Kuya Gab, magaling nang manginis, paano pa yung wala sa mood? So, I always try with my best effort to start my day with a little prayer. And it helps me to set aside of my many tendencies na po pwedeng lumabas when I feel like following my emotions. Whenever I feel like I want to follow my emotions. And true enough, it doesn't change me right away, but it helps me to set aside of my many tendencies. Like for example, I wanted to be grumpy or gusto kong maging magagalitin for that day. But then there is a voice inside of me that says, wag kang ganyan kasi hindi yan makakatulong today. Gusto kong magtampo, pero may boses na bumubulong sa akin na, wag, hindi mo kailangan gawin yan, hindi yan makakatulong today. So prayer really helps me or situate me sa buong araw. And that's what prayer does to a person like me. And in learning to set aside my tendencies, I realized that I'm cultivating an attitude that will help me to become a more changed person. So prayer doesn't change me right away, but it cultivates an attitude that helps me become a more changed person each and every day. So hindi naman biglaang bago. And I think that is the invitation for someone who desires to be a good leader or someone who desires to be a disciple of Jesus. Is someone who, despite of his authority, still allows himself to be guided or to be shepherded. Di ba yun naman yung laging bukang bibig ni Jesus? Isinugo ako ng Ama. Isinugo ako ng Ama. Isinugo ako ng Diyos Ama. Yun yung laging word ni Jesus whenever He tries to introduce Himself. Samantalang pwede naman niyang sabihin na, ako ang Diyos at narito ako para iligtas kayo. But Jesus still, in His great humility, pinapaalam niya talaga sa atin na He was sent by someone. Meaning that He is still being guided or being shepherded by someone, and that someone is God the Father. Diba? And a good leader and a good disciple is someone who still allows himself to be guided, especially by God. So, the invitation for us is to try and emulate the authority and leadership that Jesus had. Diba yung authority na pinapakita na sa atin ngayon ng mundo is that authority na pwede mong gamitin yung kapangyarihan mo for your personal gain or for the gain ng mga taong malalapit sa'yo. But Jesus' authority is an authority that inspires to lead. So, I hope that this authority of Jesus really inspires us to do better in our following to Him. Yung tipong, the prayer that will utter dun sa bibig mo is, Lord, pangunahan mo po kami para mapangunahan din namin yung mga tao patungo sa iyo. And for this moment of prayer, we will have the enough time to pray. And for our guide questions, what line struck you from the gospel, the guidelines, or the song? And ano yung message sa'yo ni Christ today? And how much authority does Jesus have in your life?